again, feral friends and fellow nature nerds, and thank you for tuning in to Dirt Dispatch number 50. I'm your host, Tim the Nature Nerd O'Hara. I want to start this episode with a shout out and a thank you to listener Brett from Pennsylvania. Brett reached out to me about a leopard pelt that he found while cleaning out his parents' home, formerly his grandparents' home. Seeing such a beautiful animal that had been killed for nothing more than vanity didn't sit well with Brett. But he thought of me and he wondered if it was something I could use in my educational programs. I promised him that if he donated it to me, if that was his decision, I would definitely use it in my in person programs, and I would do my best to honor the life of that animal. When he shipped the pelt to me, he included a letter, which I'd like to read a little bit from right now. He writes, "Dear Tim, the mystery has been solved. In wrapping up the enclosed pelt, I saw the underside is marked L. Snyder. L. Snyder is Lydia Snyder, who was my father's aunt. She lived in Philadelphia with her sister and her sister's husband. She worked as a secretary in the dry cleaning industry. I would imagine she either got this as a lost and found item in her line of work, or in her younger days she was long-term dating a wealthy man who owned land in New Jersey. This would be in the 1920s, likely during the era of big game hunting. I would not put it past this fella to have been one of the many overcompensatory class of individuals who saw fit to destroy these beautiful animals. I hope this assists you in continuing to educate the public of the horrors of the decline of nature." Thank you again, Brett. Just knowing that small piece of the story makes this pelt even more meaningful. And as I promised, I will use it to educate people about this beautiful species. As Brett said when he first emailed me, quote, "People need to be reminded of what's at stake if we lose what's left of the natural world." I also want to thank Brett by giving a plug to his company, YonderStar.com. Brett and his wife sell nativity scenes and advent calendars from around the world, all of which are certified fair trade. So if you're in the market for a nativity scene to display next Christmas, from small to life size, or a beautiful and unique advent calendar, go check out YonderStar.com. And you should know that they donate 10% of their annual profits to the Nature Conservancy and Food for the Poor. So you're not only getting something nice, you're helping do something good. You know, the story behind this pelt got me thinking about other stories that I've been told in the course of my in person programs. My primary target audiences for in person programs are senior living facilities. And one of the reasons I love those groups so much is getting to hear their stories. I find that frequently the topics of my programs elicit memories, sometimes about nature, sometimes not, but frequently incredibly interesting. Like the guy who, as a graduate student on a field trip, got sent to climb a tree to knock a porcupine down. The same man shared an office with biologist David Meach, who literally wrote the book, several books, in fact, on wolves. Or there was the woman who had lived several years in Thailand and recalled crossing flooded rivers on elephant back. Here in Wyoming recently, a woman related a tale about the infamous Blizzard of '49, one of the worst blizzards on record for the northern plains. She and her husband were ranchers, and as the storm ramped up, two of their ranch hands' horses returned to the ranch, without the hands that should have been riding them. Concerned, and with good reason, her husband headed out into the storm, eventually finding the two men sheltering in a boxcar. But heavy snow and high winds meant that the cattle were in trouble. Without shelter and trapped by fences, they would essentially get trapped in snowdrifts and eventually suffocate. The woman's husband began cutting fences to free the cattle and driving them toward town, eventually herding most of his cattle and quite a few of his neighbors to the Cheyenne stockyards. Then he, along with his horse, took shelter in a friend's service station nearby, which just happened to be next to a feed store. She didn't know his fate until the storm eased up 3 days later and he was able to make his way home. Most of their cattle survived, but others weren't so lucky. The initial snowfall in those first few days was measured in feet, and drifts were said to reach 30 feet, 9 meters or more in places. But the cold and the wind didn't truly relent for another 6 weeks. Now, recently I did a program about owls, and at the beginning of that program, I mentioned some folk tales about owls, including the belief that in some cultures they're considered an omen of death. Afterwards, a woman came up to talk to me. In a heavy German accent, she told me that particular part of the program brought back memories of her childhood. She was born in Germany in 1939, and during World War II, when she was just a child, her village would get bombed. Her mother used to tell her that owls would follow you home, and a hooting owl meant that someone in the house was going to die. She continued, telling me how when she was 15, she snuck over the border from East Germany to West Germany, eventually making her way to the United States. I think I could have spent hours asking questions, getting the details of her story, but unfortunately, it was late in the afternoon and we both had other places we needed to be. But it did spark an idea that maybe I need to circle back to some of these folks and make time to listen to and record some of these stories. I have no doubt that you would love them as much as I do. Okay, the last thing I want to tell you about is the 2025 Ig Nobel Prize in Biology. The Ig Nobel Prize is a sort of parody of the Nobel Prize and is organized by the Annals of Improbable Research magazine to honor research that's both thought provoking and kind of humorous. So, the 2025 Ig Nobel Prize in Biology was awarded to Japanese researchers who painted cows with zebra stripes. Now, you're probably asking yourself, why? And if you're not, you probably should be. But it is a great question. Previous studies had shown that blood sucking insects like horseflies or mosquitoes are harmful to livestock and can affect their behavior. Not only can these insects spread disease, but the pain and itchiness from the bites can snowball into stress that manifests as stunted growth and lower milk production. The researchers were testing out a theory that zebra stripes help deter biting insects, thinking that the stripes confuse the insects' visual systems, making it difficult for them to land. 3 black cows were chosen as subjects for the experiment. One was painted with white stripes to mimic a zebra's, another black stripes, and the third was unadorned. Photos were taken of each cow, and the number of blood sucking insects seen in the photos was counted, and researchers found that white striped bovine had half as many as the other two. That cow also exhibited fewer behaviors typical of repelling insects, like shaking its head or swishing its tail. As silly as it sounds, the results suggest that painting cows or other livestock to look like zebras is actually a viable alternative to using insecticides, making it a potential new method of pest control that's beneficial to both the environment and human health. And that, my feral friends, is where we're going to end today. Thank you for listening. Otherwise, I'd just be talking to myself. If you'd like to support the podcast, here's how you can do that. Become a patron. Subscriptions start at just $5 a month, and with 3 paid months, you get some very cool Dispatches from the Forest merch. You can find all the details at patreon.com/dispatches from the forest. You can donate using PayPal or Venmo and my email address, dispatchesfromtheforest@gmail.com. You can also use that address to email me if you have questions, comments, or requests for future episodes. You can donate using the Cash App and the hashtag ForestNerd. Or, if you prefer sending a check, shoot me a message. I'll happily provide my mailing address. Check out the merch store at cafepress.com/shop/dispatches from the forest, then click on products and find something you like. Finally, follow Dispatches from the Forest on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube. I'm your host, Tim the Nature Nerd O'Hara, reminding you to go outside and get dirty. Dispatches from the Forest recognizes that the lands where we live, work, and recreate are the traditional homelands of the Eastern Shoshone and Northern Arapaho people. We understand that this land holds immense significance for the original stewards, Native nations, and peoples of this region. Dirt Dispatches is a production of Dispatches from the Forest and may not be used or rebroadcast whole or in part without express written permission.